With a brand new Hunter x Hunter fighting game on the horizon, one of the things that everyone wants to know is what does the roster look like? As according to the publisher, this will be a full-scale fighting game, and so we can look at the developer's past and see what a full-scale fighting game developed by Eighting actually looks like. The first question is, how many characters will the roster have? Eighting's most famous fighting game is probably Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which had 36 characters in total, plus another 12 when they released Ultimate. But this game is a bit different. This is a licensed anime game, and Eighting is no stranger to those. They've made Bleach Heat the Soul, which by the 7th game had an impressive 64 character roster. And they've also made the Clash of Ninja series, which by the last entry also had an impressive 41 character roster. There is only one problem with those very bloated numbers, which is they didn't make all of those characters from scratch for a single game. These games are sequels that started very humble. The first Clash of Ninja only had 8 playable characters, and if you think that's not a lot, the first Heat the Soul only had 6. Heck, if you look at Eighting's most recent fighting game, DNF Duel, it launched with only 16 characters. And so, because the range of characters is a little bit wild, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you a 15 character roster and at the same time a 27 character roster. I feel like this puts the roster at a realistic expectation, and as I put these characters into this character select screen, they might go in this group, meaning that they will make it even if the roster is small, or they might go in this other group, meaning I still think they have a very good chance, but only if the roster is bigger. And of course, we already have the 6 confirmed characters: Gon, Kirua, Leorio, Kurapika, Netero, and Hisoka. They're the only ones that we saw in the trailer, so they get a guaranteed spot. 6 characters down, 21 characters to go, after a quick word from today's sponsor, Raycon. This video is brought to you by Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever before, and if you're new to the channel, let me tell you why I love these so much. When I'm out on the street listening to music, my phone does not leave my pocket, as you can tap the earbuds themselves to fully control what you need. That is volume up and down, that is playing and pausing, or skipping to the next or the previous song. Depending on your preference, they also have 3 customizable sound profiles to choose from, between pure sound, balanced sound, or bass. And by default, they'll block out background noise like no other thanks to their passive noise isolation, but you can also turn on awareness mode if you want to keep track of what's around you. I mean, I'm having a kid soon, I can't have these block out all the noise. I need to know if he's crying. Or do I? All of that with a battery that gives you a total of 8 hours playtime or 32 hours in total, which should be more than enough for your longest travels. So if you're ready to buy your earbuds today, go to buyraycon.com/Globku to get 15% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. The link is down below, and if you use it, you'll also be supporting the channel at the same time. So thank you, Raycon, for sponsoring this video. From this point on, we're going to be adding characters following each Hunter x Hunter arc, as I feel like this is a good way of keeping track what characters we're including and which ones we're leaving behind. Starting with the Hunter exam. One of the first characters to show up in Hunter x Hunter is Kite. He's a big part of what sets all of the events in Hunter x Hunter in motion, but the reason why I think he'd make it into this roster is probably all that he did later during the Chimera Ants arc. I can see him wielding his katana by default, but also be sort of a Faust character, thanks to his Nen ability randomizing which weapon he gets. Later in this arc, we have the actual Hunter exam, where I think we're gonna add 2 new characters in, those being Hanzo and Killua's brother, Illumi. Hanzo having a ninja style immediately makes him a good fit for a fighting game, and the only reason why I don't think he's more of a favorite to make it is because he's not that involved in any of the other arcs after the Hunter exam. He was very important in this first arc thanks to his fight against Gon, but then he kind of vanished. Illumi, on the other hand, is a constant presence in the show because he's such a big presence in Kirua's mind. And although he doesn't have a lot of fights in the show, or at least not a lot of fights on screen, he quickly became a fan favorite, and that's why I think he would be a lock in this game. And that's actually all that we're gonna take from this arc, which leaves out characters like Gon's father, Ging. For as important as this character is, they would have to essentially make up a moveset for this entire character, a bit like CC2 did for Minato back in Ultimate Ninja 3, but I doubt they'd get permission to do something like that here. And we're also excluding a few other side characters like the Examiners, but I bet not a lot of people are gonna have a problem with those. So we're gonna move on to the next arc, which is the Zoldyck family. This is a very short arc, and Illumi is already in, but we're still gonna add 2 more characters, Silva and Zeno. Silva along with Zeno are kind of the only ones that have shown any kind of action at all, so it wouldn't make sense to add anyone else from the family proper. I did consider adding Goto and perhaps Canary as well, but in the end I found it hard to fit them into a roster once it came down to making the choices of who to cut. I can see them making it in, but unfortunately they're not gonna make it in this video. And the arc that followed the Zoldyck family was Heaven's Arena, the arc that taught us all about Nen, and funny enough, I'm actually not adding any of these characters from this arc. Well, maybe that's not 100% true. There is one cameo that might make it later. But as far as characters that are a part of the action, a lot of the new faces are just there to get beat by the main cast. There is a chance that Aiding will make different choices from my choices for this roster, obviously. I mean, you've got characters like Wing and Castro who can definitely fight. Even Zushi could make it in. But you'll soon find out that even though we have a lot of free slots right now, that will quickly not be the case as we cover the next arc, York New City. This is where the Phantom Troupe comes in, and we got a potential 13 new characters to add to this roster. A number that would probably deny the entry of a lot of fan favorites, and so I was able to narrow it down to 5 members of the Phantom Troupe. Oh boy, here we go. Starting with Chrollo, I think everyone would agree that if anyone is gonna make it, it's definitely the head of the Phantom Troupe. And I would argue that Uvo also plays a major role in this story thanks to his fight against Kurapika, and we still don't have that big body brawler type, so he'd fit that role perfectly. And those two would be locks for me, even if the roster is as small as 15 characters. The final 3 troop members, though, I chose to put on the low priority space, as we haven't even made it to Greed Island yet, and we only have 5 of those big spots left. And so I chose Nobunaga, Machi, and Phaeton. As far as the story goes, I think the most important characters in the troop, besides Uvo and Chrollo, are probably Nobunaga and Paku. But of those two, only Nobunaga makes for a good fighting game character. Maybe that's just my hatred for zoners in fighting games. I'm sure they can make Paku playable if they wanted to, but I know you want to see Nobunaga in this game as much as I do. Machi shows up in the show before any of the other troop members, and so I get the feeling that she's gonna get preferential treatment. Not only that, but also her Nen ability is cool. She's a ninja type like Hanzo, but then uses string to restrict her enemy's movement or straight up cut someone. And finally, Phaeton is kind of a fan favorite. I'm not the biggest fan of this character or the fight that he had in the show. Honestly, the whole Phantom Troupe section during the Chimera arc felt like a big filler. But he's got a cool design, and being able to transform is always a cool gimmick in a fighting game. But that does mean that we're leaving every other Phantom Troupe member out. I could easily see Finks or Shalnark making it instead of Machi, though personally I would like to see Shizuku. I think they could make a really fun gimmick with a vacuum cleaner, but these were my choices, so I have to stick by them. And so we've made it to Greed Island. This is an arc that introduces a lot of characters, and one of them you knew from the start she was gonna make it into this roster. It's Biscuit, a true Nen master, Gon and Kirua's teacher, and another character with a transformation I can see her being very unique and very fun as well. We're also including Razor, and yes, he's gonna be in the lower priority section. We'll talk about that in a second. But Razor is definitely another fan favorite, I think purely because he's just that powerful, and in a lot of ways he felt like the final boss of Greed Island. But alas, he wasn't the big boss of Greed Island, that was actually Genthru, aka the Bomber. And he's the one I'm placing on the high priority slots. Now, if it was up to me, I would swap those two in a heartbeat. I would much rather get Razor over Genthru in my fighting game. But doing that would mean that every main antagonist from every arc in Hunter x Hunter would be in the main roster, except for the Bomber. And I gotta admit, his Nen power would probably make for a really cool fighting game character. Now, we left out quite a few characters from this arc. Genthru's subordinates Sub and Bara simply have no space for them. Binolt, who was essential to Gon and Kirua's training, he's also left out. Goreinu and Sesgera had a great role in the dodgeball game, and I can see them becoming DLC, but again, there was no space for them. And so, with only 8 spaces left in the roster, we finally arrived at the Chimera Ants arc. Let's not beat around the bush, you know that Meruem and Neferpitou are gonna make it into the fighting game. The only way they don't is if for some reason they decide to not cover this arc, which would be a terrible decision in my opinion. Now, those aren't the only Chimeras that I'm included, but the rest are a bit less guaranteed. I've added Yuppie, Poof, and Cheetu. Now, Yuppie and Poof are part of the Royal Guard, and I think the whole Royal Guard will be playable at some point. These two just have a low priority compared to Pito, that's it. Cheetu, on the other hand, is a bit of a hot take. I do think his speed is a fun gimmick for a fighting game. Fast characters are usually pretty popular, and that's my main reason for including him. But Cheetu does live on the same priority level as many Chimeras that aren't gonna make it into my short list. In fact, we are done with Chimeras. Cheetu is the last one. Which leaves out characters like Ramoto, Korto, Reoru, and Zazan. Leaves out too many characters to name if I'm being honest, but on the other side, we still have 3 slots open, and one of them is a high priority slot. And at this point, if you're a big Hunter x Hunter fan, you've probably guessed that I'm giving that spot to Morel. Fighting with a giant pipe and manipulating smoke to create barriers or smoke troopers, his moveset potential is tremendous. And I'm gonna give the final 2 spots to Morel's apprentices, Knuckle and Shoot. I gotta be honest with you, I forgot all about Shoot until I rewatched the Hunter x Hunter recap recently. So initially, I only had Knuckle, but I do have to admit, Shoot's ability does look fun to play around in a fighting game. That means we are excluding a character that I do want to mention before we wrap this up, and that's Palm. I like this character a lot. Her hair gimmick does remind me of Yukako from JoJo, and All-Star Battle, if anything, has shown that you can make a cool character out of that gimmick. But that is my roster prediction for Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact. This is what it looks like with 15 characters, and this is what it looks like with 27. But let me know who you think we're missing. Who's the character that you think should make it in, and who would you remove to make space for them? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget about today's sponsor, Raycon. Use my link below for 15% off plus free shipping, and get your earbuds today. And if you want to see this game's reveal along with my initial reaction, check out this video right here. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.